Okay, so Killer Joe, which is the new movie by William Friedkin. Friedkin, as we know, directed The Exorcist. There is a sort of common idea that somehow Friedkin peaked in the 1970s and never really recovered from the catastrophe of Sorcerer, which I still think is a very underrated film, as a remake, or at least a version of The Wages of Fear. The people who say that are people who never watched any of the output in the 80s. They never saw Cruising. They never saw To Live and Die in LA. They didn't see films like Rampage later on than that. More disappointing was the fact that in the wake of all those movies, Friedkin, I mean, he made some films that were complete turkeys. Jade, I think, for example, which is the Joe Esterhaus scripted erotic thriller, which is just all over the place. And the Guardian, which is a silly sort of horror movie about a killer tree, and doesn't work based on The Nanny.
A killer tree.
A killer tree, yeah. I know, exactly. That's really all you need to know, isn't it? Guardian, killer tree. But then he made things like Rules of Engagement, which was actually a hit, particularly in the US, but which felt very compromised. Felt like one of the first films that he'd made that looked like it had audience input. How do you think the end should work out? Okay, fine. Well, the audience think this, therefore would change it. Then he refound his spark with an adaptation of the Tracy Letts play Bug in 2006, which for me was an absolutely brilliant film, a really brilliant film. I remember really clearly being in Cannes, and Jonathan Romney, who I like very much, bounced up the croisette to me with this look of glee on his face and said, "I've seen Bug." He said, "Everyone's going to hate it except you." And there was the joke was, Mark's the guy who likes everything Friedkin's done. And I saw Bug and I thought, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. This is stripped down, powerful, Philip K. Dick-like storytelling. It's about paranoia. It's about people going completely nuts in a very small setting. It's a film that was made by nobody's rules but its own. I introduced it recently on the Extreme season on Film 4, and it still looks every bit as incendiary as it did back then. And it was, for me, the most exciting thing he'd done since Cruising. Now he's back with Tracy Letts, with Killer Joe, which is actually a very, very early Letts stage play, although he said that it came to him as a screenplay. And the story is, it's kind of like this southern noir, deep-fried, twisted, bitter, I won't say black comedy, but Friedkin himself said that one of the reviews said it's not so much a black comedy as a black hole comedy. It is a film which is dark and then some. Story is this incredibly messed up family, redneck family, and messed up in the same way as the family from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, incidentally, decide that the only way that they're going to get themselves out of their financial problems is to bump off an estranged mother. They then call in Matthew McConaughey, who is a lawman who has a sideline as a hitman. Initially, he's worried about their financial arrangements, but then he decides that as collateral, he wants to take on this young girl called Dottie, played by Juno Temple, which is Julian Temple's daughter. Here's a clip with Matthew McConaughey, as you haven't seen him before, and Juno Temple, who is fast becoming the biggest British star around.
Can I ask your name?
I'm Dottie.
Hello, Dottie.
Hi. What are you? I mean, what do you do?
I'm a detective.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like Magnum PI?
No, he's a private detective. I'm in the Dallas Police Department.
He ain't real either.
No. I'm real.
I read it's nothing like them shows with car chases and all.
A lot of paperwork.
I read some policemen go their whole lives without shooting their guns.
Probably true.
You ever drawn your gun?
Oh, sure.
You ever shot anybody?
Yes.
Who?
Nobody you'd know.
Ooh, little bit of menace there.
Yeah, and the little bit turns into a lottle bit. Matthew McConaughey has put behind him the leaning on things,
leaning on whoever it is,
and he's made this, and there's a couple of movies in the part which have complete. It is a revelation. He's extraordinary. One of the things that Friedkin has a habit of doing is getting the very best out of actors. He's brilliant. Gina Temple's really, really good. Gina Gershon is extraordinary, and you are seeing actors at the top of their game. And whatever else may be true of Friedkin, he has a real affinity for actors, and he knows how to get them to fire on all cylinders. And the film is brilliantly acted. It also looks great. The cinematography by Kenneth Deschanel is really, really stunning, and it's the most provocative, thing. I would think that Bug is slightly more so, but it reminds me of films like Cruising, in which Friedkin had the ability to excite and infuriate, but also to kind of, put me on my... That said, and this is very important, the film has been very well reviewed in many circles. If you've seen the posters, there are many laudatory quotes all over it. I have to say that I'm not as enthusiastic as everybody else is. When I first came out of it, I recorded an immediate response blog for the website in which I said there are things about it that I love, the performances, the look, the fact that it's unruly and that it's anarchic. But there are also things about it that I really, really don't like. I think its sexual politics are all over the place.
What do you mean by that?
I think that, well, for example, there is a key scene which has now been referred to. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's been referred to everywhere. There is a scene involving a scene of basically quasi-sexual abuse involving a fried chicken leg. That is one of the most repugnant things I've seen on the screen in a long time. And I interviewed Friedkin on the Culture Show, and I told him that. There was some discussion about whether he said the scene isn't there to shock. But I thought that scene was really, really obnoxious.
What did he say?
He said that he didn't put it in there to shock. It's in there in the play. It's there that it's an act of vengeance and an act of humiliation. And it does play like that. Now, the interesting thing about it is, I've now seen the film twice, and the second time round, it's funnier, incidentally. But one of the problems with it is that I think that in that particular scene, one of the problems is that there's an underlying thread of very ill-judged humour, and I can't pretend that I feel comfortable with it. And people have made comparisons between this and The Killer Inside Me. You remember there was all that sort of question in that.
Indeed.
Yeah, exactly. And there is a very legitimate comparison. Now, it may well be that some other people aren't as put out by that scene as I was, and I completely appreciate that. And I've seen, as I said, several reviews that don't have a problem with it, that just see it as part of the blackly comic noir milieu. I don't buy that myself. I still think that Bug is a better play. I think the problems with Killer Joe are inherent in the screenplay, and for me, Bug will remain a better movie. But having said that, I appear to be one of a very small number of people that embraces Bug, so I am completely out of step with the public.
It's never troubled you before.
No, I know, but I'm just telling you quite honestly, clearly, massively more numbers of people are going to go and see Killer Joe than will ever see Bug, because no matter how many times I tell everyone Bug is brilliant, people don't seem to be buying it, but it really is. And so I suppose the thing I'd say therefore is Killer Joe is brilliantly directed, brilliantly acted. I have a problem with the screenplay itself. There is one scene in it that even the second time round, I think, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that. There we go. And if you saw it and you liked it, for me, the pure version of it is out there with Bug. It is still true that Friedkin's greatest power is that he can still annoy me even after all this time. And there was elements of Killer Joe that I found annoying. That said, there are also elements of Killer Joe that I can see exactly why everyone's getting quite so excited about it. But I can't lie about it. It's not a film that I am able to embrace in the way that many other critics have, and just said it's his best work for ages. His best work for ages was Bug, and this isn't Bug. It is pretty impressive, but it's not Bug, and it has fundamental underlying problems that distance me from it, and I can't overcome them.
And do you think, in the same way as you spelled out what you thought of Spider-Man and then thought it will be a huge hit,
yes,
do you think this will be a commercial hit? I
think it has the potential to be, and which is surprising, because the first time I saw it, I thought it's so nasty and scuzzy, and deliberately so. That's, it's dealing with characters who are merrily sort of bumping off members of each other's families and passing siblings around as collateral. But actually, it seems to have been... I was quite surprised by just how warmly received it was, because it's such a bitter film. It's a film with such ragged, nasty edges.